Good afternoon. This is Taveau DRC, Miss T as they call me. The issue is we want to know who is a seer. That means one that can hear God, a Christian ministry prophet type, probably more of an intercessor, trying to hear the word of the Lord, try to pray, hear God about how to pray and when to pray and what to pray on. And we want to know what the difference is in the Old Testament prophet and the New Testament prophet. And we want to go into that because there's so much, I'll be honest, dysfunction out there that we got to correct it or just submit it as a Selah for those that have the big boss, the corner on the market, as it were, and we're trying to represent the ordinary person who stumbles into some of this dysfunction once in a while, and it's like, man, you can't go now because the seers have gone wild, as in prophetic seers that have crossed over. God forbid, they just never got taught. I remember all these decades I've studied the spirit of prophecy, been in ministry all my life, but I studied the doctrine since age 24 to now, since 1976 till then, and then God would lead me by the Spirit when it was His timing to different movements, and it was right at the beginning when the after Jesus people, when the charismatic renewal started, nothing like media, no internet, no fame, to have renown like Billy Graham or somebody, but he wasn't charismatic. So I remember when it started, it was very calm, Jesus people-ish, like Vineyard and so forth. Then it got into media, and then I was called to my own, and I respect it. Listen, I respect all of us. In hindsight, anything that I would say, I don't name names or anything, but all the movements didn't know what we know today. They didn't know back in the days of the 60s, 70s, 80s. It started to really get challenged and different in the mid-90s. In the mid-90s was when all the media birthed forth. Now, Jim Baker and all them, I started my ministry. I got called to the ministry, the encouraging word back then, not knowing this. My own ministry, teaching, and I had a board, and I was under Umpire Incorporated, which is like a cross-body movement, a couple of that invited me, and then I had my own nonprofit. But it's been a long, many decades with many changes and many movements and many winds, trends, fires, renewals, revivals, and then movements that have gotten off, and nobody knew, and we're not accusing, nobody knew what would happen between the soft-spoken, let's say, the word and faith movement and teaching and training, and we're for the remnant, we're for the good parts of that, the good quality, and we're not against anybody unless they're really off, if they're taking up the cross. So we can tell how people took it after media, and I was part of it, and you get all these new impressions, let's say, when it's up there, because you think, if you've never been around it, the people that watch TV that got called to ministry, because you have the group that was trained formally, like my father, and I was trained around them. I never went to Bible college or anything. The Lord told me not to. But I saw effects and defects on people who were just sort of caught it, or they got called and they saw the opportunity to be somebody, and we're for that. It's just that nobody knew it would get off. And right now the cross-buddy movement is taking up your cross, fellowship of His sufferings, in the process of overcoming and forgiving and being loving and being cross-buddy unity, led by the Spirit with no members, and trying to be the fruit. It's more about the fruit in this movement that I teach, including prophecy, the Spirit, the fruit, not the form or the loot or the look. And so this is what we want to call. All right, so we're saying that we give everybody right now in this big day with all the mega public, all this stuff going on, we give you a pass. We give you a pass from over here to work on it, get rid of the false and the true, the Ishmael and the Isaac, the hay and the stubble, and get it right. Otherwise, God will remove it. I'm not going to call you out, but let's work. I'm working on me, you work on you. All right. So talking of the spirit of prophecy, God led me into the Holy Spirit crowd with faith, and then servant leader like Vineyard, servant leaders, and nothing like today. And then Lord led me to the spirit of prophecy in the 90s. And it was different. I had some unusual things that were, I'm always very careful of, do they believe the Bible? Are they true to the best? But I didn't know there were levels of authority and occult that were smaller but then got bigger with the bigger numbers, and then the people getting callous or indifferent or used to it. Not all of them. There's always a remnant. So it went from charismatic, and I'm pro the charismatic in the remnant, and then it went to more Demas, making it big, getting the money, that type of thing, and spirit filled. And those aren't all prophets that did it. It could be all colors too. But then you have the crazy-matic. And when I started going to Florida more back in the 90s, right around the time, amazingly, that all this hardened and celebrity Christians started to get really tougher and more criticism, more accusation, false teaching, was right after the mid-90s. You know what happened in the mid-90s? The O.J. Simpson big Bronco chase. I believe, to me, that was a sign. That was the start of reality TV. Then, this is the big one. The British guy, I don't know his name, remember, but the lifestyles of the rich and famous came on. And I had an African-American pastor who had a church, and the congregation was down in the heart of the projects where nobody had income to have a car to get out of the projects. And he told me, and I was the first white person he ever knew, he and his wife knew, and he told me that his people back then, this is 30 years ago, had never seen a white person because they were locked in because of poverty back then, and that the only time they saw a white person was television and the lifestyles of the rich and famous. And I lived 16 miles away. We would meet in the heart of the city, so my heart went out. But see, that, if you notice that propaganda or media is such a big deal to shape our culture and us and the Christian, so they even prophecy, the drama of the Christian television, what they call a prophet, the moving in the gifts, giving a word, money, all this stuff is not all bad, but we got a lot of merchandising and we got a lot of strangeness. People emulating it, the grassroots, is my turf to see how it affects people, your doctrine, good and bad, country law also, and shepherding and LP. I didn't know about it till now. The false witness, the anti-relationship, more about the prize of being gifted or money or being a celebrity. Not all, and I'm not accusing you, but I'm saying we didn't know. Now we work on it. It's dysfunction by now. So we want to talk about Christ. The Old Testament prophet was Hebrews 1. It says, in the old days, God spoke to his people using diverse manners through the prophets. A few that was God called, like Obadiah and Jeremiah and Habakkuk and all these different ones, Isaiah, many different ones, micro and mega, as in major and minor prophets. Okay. In the New Testament, Hebrews 1:2, it says, now God speaks through his son, Jesus, because everybody can hear. If you know Jesus, invite Jesus into your heart. He gives you the Holy Spirit. You learn about it. You get teaching. You pray. And he'll start to lead you by the Bible and the inward witness of the Holy Spirit, using peace. And his wisdom from above is the test case for being led. I'm going to run out of time. And for a Hebrews 2 prophet, if you're nobody's going to make you a prophet. Only God will call you, fashion you into it over time. All right. Maturity and good wisdom and mentoring. All right, but we got to know that there's a difference between those who speak the word of the Lord or prophesy and the way Christ would do it on the earth. So seers gone wild, that means using your gift to read people, to divine people, to make things up, to use like the Salem witch trials, because you don't like them and you never speak to them, no relationship, no love, no fear of the Lord. That's the part you got to work on, and not to be like that. So read relationships of Christ, Hebrews 1 and 2, but also how he acted and reacted even with his mother Mary, the women, the men. fallen people, fallen women, how he respected them, and you'll find out the true fruit of a prophet and character. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, when Jesus, his relationships, when he was, how he acted and reacted in every one. God bless you. More to come.